If you don't like what's been happening in America over the last year, but haven't spoken up for whatever reason, I would say that now is a good time to reconsider. I've heard people with a lot of reach and influence say that the best way to handle Trump's second term is to just wait him out. I've heard people who were more outspoken in his first term say that it didn't make a huge difference then, so why take the risk now? Politics in the last year has somehow become even more horrifying and exhausting and depressing. If you can live your life without paying too much attention to the insanity that hasn't really affected you yet, why bother? I understand this. I really do. Trump is a lame duck president who most Americans, around 60% of us, don't support. And he keeps getting less popular. His party is currently on track for a poor midterm performance, which would make him even less powerful, less relevant, and unable to ever pass another law again. Which makes it tempting to just keep your head down, wait until November, and hope for the best. In the meantime, maybe you donate to some candidates or causes or relief funds. Maybe that feels more effective and certainly more comfortable than pissing off certain friends and family and colleagues and followers by getting all political. I get it. But here's the thing. We've only finished the first quarter of Trump's presidency. We have 3 more years of this, at least. The midterms are still 9 months away. And things are moving very fast. Faster than I think most people realize. In just 1 year, America has become a place where paramilitary squads rampage through the streets of cities that didn't vote for the president. A president who has given these federal agents, heavily armed and often masked, free rein to do whatever they want to whoever they want without any legal consequences. If you're not yet a citizen of this country, they can take you away from your family at gunpoint, grab you off the street and throw you in the back of a van, break down your door and raid your home without even getting a judge to sign a warrant first. Having the right papers will not necessarily protect you. Being in this country legally will not necessarily protect you. You may not get to make a phone call or meet with a lawyer. You may be held for days or weeks in a crowded detention center 1,000 miles from home where people are sick and dying from rampant disease and rotten food and a lack of medical care, where people are routinely beaten and abused. If you are an American citizen, these paramilitary squads can still arrest you based on your accent or your skin color or just a hunch that you might be someone they're looking for. They can arrest you if you're at a peaceful protest, or even if you just happen to be walking by one or driving through. They can tackle you to the ground, put you in a chokehold, beat you until you're bloody and bruised. They can hit you with tear gas or a pepper ball or, as we saw with Renee Good, real bullets. And they can brutalize you like this even if you're not resisting in any way. Even if you offer to show proof that you're a citizen. It can take hours and even days for the federal agents to set you free, usually with no charges, no explanation, and no fear they'll be held accountable for what they did to you. This is happening. In Minnesota, this has happened to a Purple Heart combat veteran whose head they smashed on the ground and then denied a lawyer for hours. A city snowplow driver who is legally authorized to work here and has no criminal record, but is now rotting in a barbaric detention camp in El Paso, where his wife is desperately trying to get him his medication. A detention camp where the guards just killed a man. This has happened to an off-duty police officer whose car they boxed into a corner before pointing their guns at her, demanding to see her papers, and then knocking her phone out of her hand before she could show them her badge. This has happened to a disabled woman who they dragged from her car while she was trying to see her doctor. To 4 Native Americans who they kidnapped off tribal lands, 3 of whom are still missing.
And one of them has been released, but they couldn't locate the other 3.
To an elderly citizen who was marched out of his home in his underwear into the freezing cold. To a pregnant woman who they pulled across the street by her arm while she screamed. This is happening to children in Minnesota right now. Children. The paramilitary squads are showing up in high school parking lots. Teenagers are being taken without their parents. There's a 5-year-old little boy who was in a Minneapolis classroom with his friends just last week, and now He and his father, who came here legally, are in a detention camp in Texas, while his mother tries to explain to his middle school brother why their family is missing. And the response we get from the vice president is, what were we supposed to do? Leave the kid out in the cold?
Well, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to let a 5-year-old child freeze to death?
Which was like the response we got from the Secretary of Homeland Security when she couldn't express a hint of remorse toward the family of 8 who was driving home from a basketball game when agents exploded tear gas under their car that caused their 6-month-old infant to stop breathing. Not a hint of regret.
The family was caught up in that situation because of violent protesters that were impeding law enforcement operations.
This is happening. Those are all stories just from this last week, from one state. But those stories are everywhere. The videos are everywhere. And each week there are more, not less. They've been multiplying since last spring, really, when the government's deportation machine kicked into high gear. I remember the fear here in LA, but then DC was worse than LA, and Chicago was worse than DC, and Minneapolis is worse than Chicago, and now they've arrived in Maine. And they have yet to spend most of their gigantic new budget that's the size of the Israeli militaries, which is why we could really use more people speaking up right now. The government and its paramilitary squads are powerful, but they are not popular. They do not have the support of most Americans. That is not actually what most people voted for. And a big reason they're so unpopular, the reason that immigration went from one of Trump's strongest issues to one of his weakest, is because people who've experienced this madness and witnessed these incidents have decided to speak out and hold up their phones and share these stories and take to the streets. And now the pushback isn't just coming from protesters and activists and politicians, but from federal judges and churches and schools and hospitals and local media, and now even local law enforcement. A few weeks ago, a group of faith leaders in Minnesota called for an economic boycott to protest the government's militarized occupation of Minneapolis. One day of no work, no school, no shopping. The idea then got support from labor unions and a bunch of community organizations, and then hundreds of local businesses that all agreed to shut down for the day. They called it the Day of Truth and Freedom, and it's taking place as I'm recording this on Friday, January 23rd. I can't predict how it'll go or the impact it'll have, but I can imagine it's not an easy thing to do for everyone who's participating. It's not easy for most people to shut down their business for the day, or miss work, or figure out childcare. It's not easy to be part of any kind of protest when the government's already investigating the people who represent you and terrorizing your state with 3,000 federal agents. It's a risk and it's a sacrifice, and the thousands of people participating are just hoping it will matter. And that's what we need right now. I get why a lot of people with big platforms and influential voices in all kinds of fields want to stay away from politics, especially now. And I don't think that in order to make a difference, everyone needs to declare their partisan loyalties or call Trump a dictator or go lead the next protest. But I do think that speaking out will matter. Taking action will matter. Because it will tell the people who know you and follow you and respect you that it's okay for them to speak out too. And then maybe they'll share these stories or organize to help their neighbors or put pressure on their elected officials or join people in the streets. And if nothing else, saying something now, doing something now, will begin to rebuild some of what we've lost in this country over the last decade. Our humanity. Our ability to see someone else's pain and suffering and struggle and fear as our own, even if we're not like them, even if we haven't experienced what they have. Because rebuilding that sense of empathy and decency is the only thing that has the potential to tie us together again and get us through this crisis.